Just watch the wire when you go sleep.
Hello, good night everybody. Laila Tov, Shavua Tov, Chodesh Tov. Thank you for coming to our house. Those days I was discussing with my wife, maybe you have to move because the house is, we married the children, the house is too big for us. And she said, no, the house is small. I think she's right, as always. Anyway, I would like to introduce our Rabbi, Rabbi Moshe Matz. He's going to introduce the guest speaker, the honored guest speaker. Just a minute.
I'm not going to speak. I know my place. Sometimes my place is not to speak, and this is one of those places. But I do want to take the opportunity, first of all, to thank the Achsania, to thank the hosts, the Gammermans, who so graciously said yes right away, and set it up so beautifully, and Mrs. Reutman, who took charge and responsibility for the technicalities of it and making it beautiful like she always does. So thank you, and Mitzvah Hashem, your home should always be open for Torah and for Chesed, and you should have gatherings only for Simchas and Mitzvah Hashem. And of course to Mr. Dagmi for his tremendous Avodas HaKodesh of bringing Torah to the city and then giving really a chizuk to the whole communities, all the communities, the Sephardi communities, the Ashkenazi communities, the Moistus of Torah here in the city. So Tiskal HaMitzvahs. You should continue to do this great work that you're doing, and we should always continue to be good recipients and good shutfim in Mitzvah Hashem as we move forward. Chazak Baruch. I'd like to, on a personal level, thank a person that I considered a dear friend, a Yedid I know for many, many, many years, already from Mexico. The first time we met, we had some interesting experiences there, Baruch Hashem, and the good thing about Rabbi Krohn is that he doesn't age at all. He looks exactly the same way back then and now. Thank you for coming and giving chizuk to our community. And the Mitzvah Hashem, we look forward to having you come to South Florida again. As you know, the city's growing tremendously. So you can say over the same stories, and chances are nobody had heard it already because there's new people all the time. Baruch Hashem. We look forward to hearing your words. Thank you everybody for coming.
You want this? Just bring this down. It's a tremendous chus to come here. I can't imagine this crowd. I thought there would be 20, 30 people here, but it really is amazing, and I'm thrilled that you're here. Hopefully we'll be able to be inspired together. The name Gammerman is very special to me because my brother-in-law, Shaul Dollinger, who was born in Sao Paulo and eventually came to learn in the Telz Yeshiva, I know that somehow his family is related to the Gammermans. I'm not exactly sure, but your brother. Okay, so somehow we're connected. So it's an honor to be in your home, and I thank Rabbi Matz. As he mentioned, we go back quite a few years, Baruch Hashem. But more than anyone else, I want to thank Jonathan Dagmi. It is just not to be believed what he has forced me to do in the last till Thursday night, from Thursday night. I know you're not going to believe this. I came here Thursday night. I don't know what time. What time did I arrive? At 6 o'clock. This is the 11th speech since then. But I've had the opportunity to meet some of your children in the schools, in the boys' schools, the girls' schools. And we spoke in Moroccan communities, and in Chabad today. It's just been incredible, and the people are so wonderful here. So I hope that in 1903, in Poland, the biggest group of Hasidim was the Ger Hasidim, and the Chidushei Rim was the first Ger Rebbe, the Sfas Emes was the second, and unfortunately, in 1903, he passed away. And of course, all the Chassidim were terribly saddened, and he lived only to be 56 years old. Now, at his funeral, his son, who would be the next Ger Rebbe, the Imre Emes, Rabbi Avram, he was walking with his brother Rabbi Tzalel. So picture this, two brothers are walking towards the gravesite of their father, and they're going to bury their father. And the Imre Emes said to his brother, at least our father had Arichas Yomim. Arichas Yomim means length of days. So his brother Rabbi Tzalel said, what are you talking about? Arichas Yomim? He didn't have Arichas Yomim, he only lived to be 56. So the Imre Emes gave him a fabulous answer. And he said, I didn't say that our father had Arichas Shonim, length of years. I said he had Arichas Yomim, length of days. And that's a fabulous lesson. No one in this room, no one in the entire Florida, no one in the entire world can guarantee for themselves Arichas Shonim. Nobody knows whether they're going to live 70, 80, 90, 40, or 50. It's all in the hands of Hashem. Nobody knows what tomorrow brings. But every single one of us, every man, woman, and child in this home tonight can guarantee for themselves Arichas Yomim, length of days. And that's what the Imre Emes was talking about his father, the Sfas Emes. He may have lived to be only 56, but every day counted. And when we come in the days of Sphira and we count every night, what's important is not counting the days, but making every day count. Making every day special. And that's what we came here for tonight. To try to learn how can each and every one of us have Arichas Yomim? How can we make every single day count? Now, when we begin counting Sphira, so most people would have thought that any mitzvah that we do every once in a while, Sukkah, Matzah, Chanukah, Megillah, we say Shechionu. How come we don't say Shechionu when we start counting Sphira? We don't count Sphira a whole year. We do it one time during the year. It's true, we do it for 49 days. But it's only one time a year. Why don't we say Shechionu? So there's two different reasons. Totally different reasons. And both are so true. And the first one, the Talmidei Chachamim here, who know the Ran. The Ran was one of the Rishonim on Masechta Pesachim, the last Ran. You open up the Gemara backwards, you look at the last Ran, and he tells us something. He says the only time that you say Shechionu is when it's filled with happiness. You're laying the Megillah, you're so happy, it's Purim, Chanukah Licht, you're eating matzah, right? So, as a matter of fact, one of the reasons, by the way, that you don't say Shechionu by a bris, and I'm a mile, so I can tell you, somebody had a baby, right? You're having a bris, don't you want to make Shechionu? No, but the baby cries. The baby has some discomfort. So I'll tell you something, has nothing to do with the speech, but there used to be a mile in Eretz Yisrael. His name was Yossela Weisberg. I mean, he used to do 10 bris in a day, and we were very friendly. And in Eretz Yisrael, they make Shechionu. The Rambam Passings used to say Shechionu by a bris. So I remember one time we were at a bris. I was watching him do a bris in Yerushalayim. Must have been 200 people there. And of course, he was a character. So right before the bris, he says, Rabbi, we have Rabbi Paysach Krohn here, who's a mile from America. And in America, they don't say Shechionu by the bris because the babies cry. But here in Yerushalayim, we have very good moilim, so they're not going to feel pain. So you could say Shechionu. We never spoke after that. No. No. He remained friendly, but he was a character. So the truth is that when you say the bracha al sfiras ha'omer, what is omer? Omer is a carbon that we used to bring in the Beis HaMikdash. And if you think about what you're saying, that really is sad. We're making a bracha on something that we can't do. We can't bring the omer. So the Ran says there's a point of sadness. That's why you don't say Shechionu. So what occurs to me, what is the first phrase that you use right after you count the omer? What do we say? Harachmon? Hu yazilonos havodas beis hamikdash don't come. Why do you say that? So I think because of this Ran. Because the Ran is telling us that we feel sad because we don't have the Beis HaMikdash. So Mamela, we daven. Harachman hu yazilonos havodas beis hamikdash. We daven right away that we should have the Beis HaMikdash. But the Bnei Yissaschar says a different thing. And he says, you know what? The main thing is not the counting of the days. That's not what the Shechionu is all about. We're counting to reach all the way up till Shavuos. Then we're going to say Shechionu. because this is a growth process. We are right now, tonight is 17. And tonight, those of you who say the extra tefillahs, I always love to daven these extra tefillahs. Tonight is Tiferes Shabbat Tiferes. I don't know if you saw that. Tiferes means the glory. Tonight is one of the greatest nights of Sfira, the glory of the glory. So we come here to learn Torah and to be inspired. That's Tiferes Shabbat Tiferes. But every night we go higher and higher. And at the end we're going to say Shechianu. That's what the Bnei Yissaschar says. As a matter of fact, Rabbeinu Bechaya says that the days between Paysach and Shavuos, Paysach is not a yontif in itself. It's just a haschol, it's just a beginning. And he says these days that we are in now are like Chol HaMoed. Between Paysach and Shavuos, we have to grow. So we're on a pathway. And that's why it's called Atzeres. It's like the last day of this whole 49-day period. So the question is, how do we grow? What path do we take that we should be able to reach Shavuos and say Shechianu properly, and that we should also be able to see that we are having Arichas Yomim. So watch this. I'm going to tell you something now. If you never heard this, you have to fasten your seatbelt. You won't believe this. Do you ever think about it? Why is Sfira 49 days? Where does that number come from? Why not 59? Why not 29, 39? What's 49? Where does that come from? So the Bnei Yissaschar says something fabulous. He says that there was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in Pirkei Avos in Perek Beis tells us that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was sitting with his Talmidim. And think about this. Let's see if anybody would give an answer. Men or women, anybody. He asked the question, what is the best midah that a yid should have? Anybody want to give a suggestion? What do you say? What?
Lev tov, a heart.
How do you know that? I can't believe it. You're the first one ever that got it on the first one. Yeah, very good. So, anyway, but there were one Talmud said you have to be a shachin tov. Another one said you have to be a chaver tov. Another one said that you should. The first one said ayin tov. Don't be jealous. But then Rabbi Eliezer ben Aruch said what this lady said: leiv tov. You should have a good heart. And the Rebbe said that's the answer, because if you have a leiv tov, you're going to have a good eye. You're going to be a good friend and be a good neighbor. Now watch this. How much is leiv equal? 32. How much is tov equal? 17. 32 and 17. Even in Brazil is 49. Right? So 49. That's why we have 49 days of Sfira. Because this is the time to get a leiv tov. Leiv is 32. Tov is 17. 32 and 17 is 49. That's why he says that we have 49 days. So we have to work on ourselves to get that leiv tov. So I want to tell you some stories about what does it mean when somebody has a leiv tov. Listen to this. This story happened in Yerushalayim a couple years ago, in a Sfarish shul. There's a Rov who would get up every day early, and 6:30 he gave a shir to 15 balabatim, and they would learn until 7:15 for 3/4 of an hour, and they would have a shir. But there was a 16th person in that group who wasn't so into learning. He didn't understand learning well, but he had such a recognition, and he wanted to help these people. He felt it's so nice that they get up early to learn. He decided he's going to serve coffee and tea every single day for these people. Now, the only thing is that when you got 15 people, you got 15 different ideas. So this guy wanted coffee decaffeinated, and this guy coffee with 99 milk. This guy wanted red milk. This one wanted black coffee. Then Faktachon with the tea, decaffeinated tea, herbal tea, and this guy's from England and he wants tea with milk. So this guy had a whole chart of who he delivered and what he delivered. Except he had this one thing. He only gave a half a cup. Half a cup of tea, half a cup of coffee. And people said to him, Rabbi Yid, what are you doing? We all want a full cup. He said, I know, I'm in the kitchen, don't worry. You need more, just call me. I'll be here, I'll give it to you. They could not change him. Only a half a cup. One day he wakes up, he's not feeling well. So he goes into his son's room. The son usually davened later. And he says, could you do me a favor? Could you go to the shul and bring everybody the coffee and tea? I have here's a chart. And just deliver it because I don't feel good. I can't make it to shul today. He says, Abba, yeah, no problem. He'll go. He comes to the shul, he fills out everything. He's about to walk into the Beis Medrash and he sees his father. He says, Abba, what are you doing here? I thought you don't feel well. He said, I forgot to tell you something. What did you forget to tell me? Only a half a cup. He says, you're joking, right? He says, no. Everybody gets only, don't they want a full cup? He said, yeah, of course. But I only give a half a cup. I said, why? He said, I'll tell you, but don't tell anybody. He said, you see, there's 2 men in that chair. Their hands shake terribly. And if I would give everybody a full cup, when they would pick up that cup, it would shake all over the place, go over the table, over their clothes, on the Gemara. They would be so embarrassed. Like this, I give everybody a half a cup. Nobody's embarrassed. And if I gave everybody a full cup and I gave only them a half a cup, they would also feel embarrassed. You know, they're different. Who thinks like that? Somebody who's not thinking about himself. Somebody who's ready to take criticism that he's doing something that doesn't make sense, giving only a half a cup. But he knows those 2 people are not going to get embarrassed. That's what a Lev Tov is. Now, I want to show you something. I'm going to tell you now one of the greatest stories you will ever hear in your life. And I recently had the schus to print another Maggid book. Some of the Maggid books, I hope you have them, has great stories, but this has got to be from the greatest ever. This story happened in Eretz Yisrael just about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And there's a very tight-knit family in Har Nof. Everybody, they're very close, a father, a mother, and 7 kids. But they're not wealthy people, and every year they take a vacation together. Very organized people, and the parents write out an itinerary for where they're going to go. And they told them that year they're going to go up to Tveria, jeeping in Tveria, they're going to go on a boat ride on the Kinneret, but don't ask us on the way that we're going to go to other places. We can't afford it, this is where we can go. And also, no restaurants and no eateries, because they're very expensive in the summer. Ima's making all the sandwiches and the snacks, and that's what we'll have. Fine. They rent a car, they didn't have their own car, and they start going north. They go north, they come up to Netanya. Netanya's gorgeous. It's on the water, and the mother takes out all the sandwiches and the snacks and the food, and they're eating at the picnic table. Fine. They finish, so the father says, okay, everybody in the car, we got to go up north, we have a long trip up to Tveria. Everybody gets in the car, except 7-year-old Zevi. The father says, Zevi, why don't you get in the car? He says, Abba, you said it's a long trip to Tveria, I'm not going to make it. Why am I not going to make it? I have to go to the bathroom. I have to use the lavatories. He says, there's no bathrooms here, there's just picnic tables here. He says, Abba, I need a bathroom. So the father knows he's got no choice. He looks in the distance and he thinks he sees a restaurant. Sure enough, everybody gets in a car and it's a restaurant. Now this father knew very well, there's no way that these people who own the restaurant like it when people come in and use the facilities and they don't buy anything. But what's he supposed to do? So he leaves everybody in the car, he goes in with his son Zevi, and the waitress is standing by the door. She said, can I help you? He said, look, ma'am, please forgive me, but I feel terrible. We're not here to buy anything, but my son needs the bathroom. Could he just use the bathroom? He'll make it quick and then we'll get out. She looks around the whole restaurant and she says, make it quick and go. Fine, the kid does what he has to do. He comes out, he's in the middle of the restaurant. The father meets him and he's about to walk out. And he's just about at the door when the Israeli waiter with a raging temper sees him, Rafi. And he says, what are you doing here? Who gave you permission to come in here? All you guys are all the same. You just take advantage, you don't buy anything. Who gave you permission to come here? And this father is watching that waitress is on the side by the wall. She's watching this. And this father instinctively knows if he says that she let him, he's going to fire her on the spot. That's how angry he was. So listen to what the father says. He says, sir, you're yelling for no reason. He said, what do you mean? He said, we're all coming in to eat. He says, who's coming in to eat? He says, I got 7 children and my wife. We're all coming in to eat. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Please forgive me. Don't apologize. Just set the tables. And he sends Zevi into the car to bring out the other kids and the mother. She doesn't believe it. She said, we never eat in a restaurant. He said, no, Abba said, we got to come in. These kids come in, they sit down at the table. They never saw food like this. They never saw prices like this. They never saw a menu like this. They can't believe it. And sure enough, the mother says everybody can have 1 dish and 1 drink. Fine, they all finish eating. And when they're finished eating, the father notices that at the kitchen, there's a lot of activity. There's 6 waiters, and everyone is standing with ice cream in one hand, cake and sparklers in the other hand, and they're marching towards the table. He says, excuse me, sir. He stands up. He says, I'm sorry, there's a mistake here. We didn't order dessert. So the owner of the restaurant comes and says, young man, sit down. I want to tell you something. We said, what's that? He said, when you guys sat down to eat, that waitress, she came into the kitchen and she was crying. I said to her, why are you crying? She said, I just saw somebody do something for me. Nobody in my life ever did anything. You see this family, and they're spending a fortune? They were not coming in here to eat anything. But when they saw that I could get in trouble because Rafi was so angry, they brought in all the kids. They're spending an absolute fortune just so I shouldn't get in trouble. And that's why she was crying. And the owner said, when we heard that, we decided for special people, we got to do something special. That's why we gave you the dessert. They finished the dessert. The father says, okay, can I have a bill? So the waiter comes and he gives the bill. On the bill it says, if you ever come back here again, it's 50% off. But the father's an El Chayid. So he says, yeah, but what about today? I want to pay for this afternoon. Listen to this. The owner comes over to him and he says, we have a policy in this restaurant. We only charge people. We don't charge malachim. Imagine that. We don't charge malachim. You know what that shows me? That we could all be malachim. We could all be great people. This guy didn't have to do what he did, but he saw somebody was going to get in trouble. And that's what a Leiv Tov is all about. And that's how we have to think. Now, I want to tell you something very interesting. How we can start from tonight, if it's not too late. You know what the Sefer Chavetz Chaim writes? He wrote a Sefer called Avas Chesed, Perik Yud Beis. And it's a very easy Sefer to read because it's in Ivrit Kala. It's very easy Hebrew. It's not a sophisticated Hebrew like Yediot Achronot or Mariv. You know, you can't read these newspapers or whatever. I don't even understand the headlines. But whatever. I just know Israel's in trouble. That's all I know. But otherwise, but Avas Chesed, you can read. Listen what he says. Uma'oid. Uma'oid means very. It's very important. Tzarech li zaher. A person has to be careful. From today on, now, one day for the rest of your life, should you go by that, you don't do a favor for another yid. Now, I'm not talking a husband for a wife for a husband. That you got to do if you know it's good for you. I'm talking about doing for other people. So people say, oh, doesn't charity begin at home? Yeah, but you're not such a big tzaddik because you made your husband coffee Sunday morning. And he's not such a big tzaddik because he bought your flowers on Friday. You know, that's what marriage is all about. But every day you should do a chesed for somebody. And not only that, he writes, just like you got to do a chesed, every day, ha'isha Yisraeli, every yid has to have kviyas itim later. You have to learn something every day. And that goes for women as well. I'm not telling you to learn Daf Yomi, but you could learn Chumash, you could learn Tanakh, you could learn Musa, you could learn Halacha. There's a lot for women to know. We know that. So you want to have Arichas Yomim every day. Before you go to sleep, think about, did you do something for somebody else? Did you learn something today? And if you did that, then that's Harichas Yomim. You accomplished. You can write down and think about, I did something today worthy of being a Yid. I just didn't live like the goyim in the street. To just eat and sleep and work and watch TV and then nothing for anybody else. Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner wrote a great sefer. It's called Nefesh HaChaim. And in there, his son writes, the Hagdama, Rabbi Volozhiner, he writes, Shezeh kol adam, my father said, this is what man is about. Stop thinking about yourself. You were created lahoyil la'achrini, to help other people. Every woman here, every man here, every one of us has certain talents. Hashem didn't give you the talent that you should become rich and famous. Hashem gave you the talent that you should take that talent and do something for other people. And these are the 3 words that we have to remember that Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner used to tell his son, Loi la'atzmoi nivra. You are not created for yourself. And when you have a beautiful home like this, and you open it up for the public, that's Loi la'atzmoi nivra. You're not living for yourself. You brought in a whole crowd. And like this, you'll be able to have, hopefully, inspiration, and hopefully elevation. But that's why Hashem gives you a home. That's why Hashem gives you a car, gives you money, so that you can take that and help other people. That's really what it's all about. Now, there's a second thing that we spoke about, and that is about Torah. But, you know, I see Rabbi Matz sitting here, and if we all know that Rabbi Matz is involved in the Agudas, I got to tell you a great Agudas story before we go to the next part. You know, many, many years ago, there was a wonderful person. His name was Rabbi Melech Tress. He was the head of Agudas Yisrael. You never met him, right? No. So he was the head of Agudas Yisrael in America. So his son, Tzvi, I'm sure you know him. Tzvi's a great Askin in Toronto, and he moved down to Miami. And one day he told me, now Tzvi's my cousin, and he told me he was davening in some shul in Miami, and he had his talis bag on the table, and a Satmar Chassid, a guy with long payas, upturned hat, and a bekashet, you know, just like me. And he sees this guy, he sees the talis bag, and he sees the name Tress. He says, "The heist Tress? Your name is Tress?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "Samulgehet von Elimelech Tress? You ever hear of Elimelech Tress?" So he said, "Yeah, that was my father." And this Satmar guy just stops, and he starts crying. So Tzvi Tress said to him, "You knew my father?" He said, "I want to tell you a story." He said, 50 years ago, I was a young man. I just came from Europe. I came to Williamsburg because I'm a Satmar Chassid. I had a wife and 2 kids. I had no job. I was going crazy. I couldn't put food on the table. I came to Satmar. Satmar wasn't as big as it is today. I said, "Guys, I need a job." And they said to me, "We don't have jobs. We're struggling ourselves." So one guy said to me, "Why did you go to that good office down on Bedford Avenue? There's a guy there, Elimelech Tress." So this Satmar guy says, "I'm Satmar. You think I'm going to Aguda?" That's what he said. And he said, "This guy, Mike Tress, doesn't have a beard. You think I'm going to go to him and he should do me a favor?" So I don't know if that was the smartest thing to say, but after 2 weeks, he couldn't help it. He had to go. He had no choice. So he comes into the Aguda office on Bedford Avenue, and Mike Tress is there. He sees the Satmar Chassid. He never saw him before. He said, "Can I help you?" Shalom Aleichem. He said, "Look, I feel terrible, but I need a job. And I'm a Satmar Chassid, but they don't have any work for me. Do you know where I could get a job? I'm desperate. I have a wife and 2 kids. We don't have food for Shabbos." So he said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm a glazier. I fix glass on windows and doors." So Mike Tress says, "I can't believe it. There's a glazier just on Marcy Avenue, just a few blocks away. And I know he needs somebody. Go to him, give him a note from me, and I'm telling you, he's going to hire you, because I just know. I just heard the other day he needs somebody in the shop." And sure enough, the guy hires him, and he starts working there. And then he said to Tzvi, "I could not believe it. He paid me on Friday, and the next Friday he paid me again. I was able to walk into a store. I was able to buy food. I felt like a human being. I was so embarrassed to come home without money. And now I had money every week." Listen to this. He said, after 2 months, one day my boss calls me in. He says, "I want you to go to Mike Tress and tell him he doesn't have to give me any more money, because from now on I'm going to pay you myself, because you're a great worker." Could you imagine? You could cry from a story like that. That what was on the note. Was take this guy. I know you probably don't need him, but I'm going to pay his salary as long as it's necessary. And don't tell him that I'm doing this. And then after 2 months, he saw the guy's a good worker, so he paid himself. That's called a leiv toiv. And that's what we have to strive for. But as I said before, we have to strive also. We have to strive also every day to learn something. And the only way that we can learn and give over our kids the idea that they have to learn and it means something, that's only if you love them, and only if you validate them, and only if you spend time with them. You know, it's very easy to tell kids to learn, but if you don't learn, and if you don't learn with them, they're not going to learn. And you know something? Rabbi Aaron Kotler says something fabulous. Why did Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, why did they die during Sfira? Why, if they would have died, imagine in Elul, every rabbi would have such great speeches. Oh, Elul, Rosh Hashanah, you got to do tshuva. They didn't give covet one to the other. Speeches would be ready made. Why did they die during Sfira? And you know what he says? A great thing. Because if you don't love other people, if you don't have covet for your Talmud, for your child, for the person sitting next to you in shul, you're not going to be the one to transmit Torah. You can only transmit Torah to the one that you love. And I want to give you 2 examples. There was a principal, his name was Laser Geldseller. Chassidish guy, tall, striking, good-looking guy, Chassidish guy. And he had a yeshiva in Brooklyn. And he decided to take all the boys from the Beis Medrash and some of the kids in high school to take them to Eretz Yisrael. And they were going to go to visit all the Rabbonim and get brachas. As they were driving on the bus in Eretz Yisrael, this Rabbi Geldseller saw a cemetery, a Jewish cemetery, obviously in Eretz Yisrael, and he remembered there's a big tzaddik that's buried there. So we all know that it's a big schus to daven by a tzaddik's kever, especially if you say divrei Torah that the tzaddik said. So he said to the boys, listen, I'm going to tell the bus driver to stop, we're all going to go in, and we're going to daven by that tzaddik, because it's a great schus. So everybody, they stopped the bus, everybody got off except one kid. One kid is sitting up front, and he's looking out the window. He's so sad, because everybody's going in, and he's not going in. So the Rebbe passed him, and he said, Yingala, you don't want to come inside? He said, Rebbe, I'm a kohen. I can't go into a cemetery. And Geldseller felt so bad, he forgot this kid is a kohen. Of course he can't go into a cemetery. Imagine if you were the Rebbe. What would you tell that kid? He feels so like an outcast. Listen to what the Rebbe said. He said, Yingala, let me tell you something. Today we're all going inside and you're staying outside. But when the Beis HaMikdash is here, you're the kohen, you're going to go inside and do the avodah, and we're going to be stuck outside. What a great thing to tell a Talmud. The kid all of a sudden felt like $1 million. Till now, he felt like he was an outcast. And now, all of a sudden, he felt like $1 million. He's the kohen, he's the one to do the avodah. Now, I'll tell you another story that they told over at a Torah Masora convention. Many of you certainly know Torah Masora is a great organization for Mechanchem, for teachers and Rebbeim. So there's a guy, Avram Mandelbaum, who teaches in Lakewood, Orchos Chaim. Now that school is so big, it's unbelievable. Now, just 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, I was asked to speak at an Ovei Sabonim program from kids in Lakewood, 5th grade to 8th grade. You know how many kids were at that Ovei Sabonim program? They couldn't even have room for the fathers. Only for the boys. 1,800 boys from 5th to 8th grade. You can imagine. Auf Aventura Lakes gesagt. Right? You'll have to expand a little bit. But imagine that, 1,800 kids in Ovei Sabonim. Anyhow, so this Mandelbaum, he's the principal of 3rd and 4th grade. That's it. There's 10 3rd grades and 10 4th grades. So in these 10 grades, or 20 grades, 20 classes, there's almost like, 300 kids. So he told everybody at Torah Masora what he does is when a kid is bad and he's sent out of class and sent to the principal's office, so he sits with the kid, he finds out what he did, he gave him some mussar, and he says he always, before he sends the kid back, he tells the kid by the first name, his name, let's say David or Shimon or Yitzi, whatever, don't forget David, I love you. And he sends him back to class. One day, this kid David, who's always in the principal's office, a little troublemaker, the Rebbe speaks to him, and he sends him back to class. Rabbi Mandelbaum said 10 minutes later, he walked out of the office, and the kid is sitting there. He said, David, what are you doing here? I sent you back to class 10 minutes ago. David says to him, Rebbe, you forgot to tell me you love me. You could cry from that, right? Why is that kid in the office so often? You know why? Because he's not validated at home. Because his parents have no time for him. And maybe that's the reason he's so bad, because he wants to hear from somebody who means something, that they love him. I want to ask you a question. You don't have to raise your hands. When was the last time you went over to your child and just said to them, I love you. You're special. I'm a millionaire because you're my child. I want to say something to every father here. Every single father, if your son is learning in a yeshiva and you do not know the name of his Rebbe or the name of the Masechta that he's learning, you got homework to do. I'm not telling you have to know the Masechta, but you got to know what he's doing. You got to know who the Rebbe is. When was the last time you called a Rebbe to find out how the kid is in class? Not just on PTA. And I'll tell you a little thing that I did all the time. You got to bribe these Rebbes. On Hanukkah, you buy him a gift. On Paysach, you give him extra money. So you think, well, it's not nice. Nobody else is doing it. Yeah, but then your kid is going to get the attention. And I say something to the mothers. If you don't know your daughter's 3 best friends and you don't know her favorite colors, you got homework to do. Think about that. When was the last time you had a conversation with your daughter? So I want to tell you something very personal. It's a little embarrassing to talk about this, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. You know, all of you, some of you, have not married off daughters yet, but those of you who have been in Shidduchim is not an easy parsha today, no matter who you are, especially if you're trying to marry off a daughter. So I have 5 children, Baruch Hashem, and my daughter Fegi, she, for whatever reason, my middle child, she was the one who had the most difficult time with Shidduchim. And you know how it is when you're trying to marry off a child and it's not going easy. So after a while you blame them and they blame you, you know, back and forth. If you didn't have such curly hair, you know, the guys would want to go out with you, right? You know, all these crazy things that you say to children that you shouldn't say. So one night I said something to my daughter. I shouldn't have said it. And I felt bad about it. So an hour later I went up to her room. I said, Fegi, I just want to tell you I'm so sorry of what I said. I shouldn't have said it. But you know I love you, right? She said, Ta, of course I know you love me. I said, how do you know? I said, because you have told me so many times. You just walked over to me and said, you know, I'm a millionaire because you're my daughter. And that's true. And I want to tell every single one of you something. You want to make a connection to your children forever? I'm not telling you anything that I didn't do myself. Every single one of you, men or women, one of you in the family has to do it. What I did with each of my 5 children, I gave every one of them a half hour once a week, undivided attention. No cell phones. You want to go bowling, we'll go bowling. You want to go buy pizza, we'll buy pizza. You want to learn Ezra, we'll learn it. Whatever, just me and you. Think about that. When you develop a connection to a child, that child becomes your friend forever. But if you don't know what in the world they're doing, and they're just hanging out the streets like we saw before, and Aventura Lakes, these guys on bikes and scooters with the girls, that's because the parents are just not doing anything with them. You know, Jonathan was telling me that he developed programs for teens where they should be able to learn something. We got to do something. Because if you don't validate the kids, they're going to be validated someplace else. So if you want to learn with these kids, and you want to have that they should have arichas yomim, make sure that they too do chesed every day, and also learn Torah every single day. I want to tell you one more thing. I want you to imagine that you were Rabbi Akiva. Now this is not easy. Imagine you're Rabbi Akiva, you got 24,000 Talmidim that are dying in a period of 33 days. Now I did the math. That comes out to 727 children a day that are dying. He's running to Tveria, and they say, Rebbe, give a hesped in Tveria. That kid that was a genius, he knew Shas, he just died. Rabbi Akiva's crying his eyes out. He comes finishing Tveria. Rebbe, you got to go to Tzfas. That boy that just got engaged, he just died. You love that Talmud. And after he goes from Tveria to Tzfas, he's going to Ashkelon, to Ashdod, to Yerushalayim, to Haifa, and he's going crazy. So if any of us were Rabbi Akiva, we would say, okay, I'm out of here. Obviously, Hashem, you don't like my Torah, I'll go do something else. I'm not going to teach Torah. No, that's not what he did. You know what Rabbi Akiva did? He said, we made a mistake. And he got 5 or 7 Talmidim, depends on the Medrash or the Gemara. And he said, listen, we taught them Torah, we didn't teach them Midas. We didn't teach them giving covet one to the other. We're doing the right thing. We're not giving up. We're just going to figure out a different way how to do it. And then the Medrash tells us, Umalu kol Eretz Yisrael Torah. The whole Eretz Yisrael filled with Torah. Because you don't give up. That's what I want to tell every one of us. We have gone through very, very difficult last 3-4 years. COVID, Maron, Surfside, Ukraine, terrible anti-Semitism all over the world. A Yid cannot give up. Rabbi Akiva did not give up, and no, that's what this whole Kinos tonight is all about. Giving chizuk to each other. We're the greatest nation, and we have the greatest people, but sometimes we can be down. And so when we come together, we build each other. That's really what it's all about. And I want to tell you 3 things. Don't ever, ever give up on your children. Don't ever give up on your marriage. And most important, don't ever give up on yourself. We all have talent. You could all be great, every one of you. We're all good, but we could be better. And sometimes we have downtimes. And everybody feels terrible about themselves. They feel they're not accomplishing. But that's what Rabbi Matz, the whole Kehillah is all about. To give chizuk. We could all, every one of us, could have arichas yomim. We're not talking about arichas shonim. That's not in our hands. It's arichas yomim. So, I want to tell you one more thing, and then we're going to end with the greatest story ever. It's a life-changing story. You know, as a male, I have the opportunity to do brisson, not only by Ashkenazim, by Sephardim, and all kinds of Sephardim, Moroccans, Bukharians, Syrians, Persians. The only thing I don't do with these brisson is eat. If I had to eat Moroccan fish at every bris, I'd be finished. Right? I'm not a spicy guy at all. I mean, maybe my personality is spicy, but not the food, that's for sure. But listen to this. The Syrians have a poem that they have at a bris, and it's in the Piyutim. It is such a beautiful poem, and it teaches us everything that we've been speaking about. So I'm going to read you the poem in Hebrew, then of course I'll translate it, but I just want you to get the poetry of Hebrew. Ben Adam, lama tidag al adamim, v'loi tidag al hayamim. Ki hadamim einam oizrim, v'hayamim einam chayzrim, redoif acha ha'torah v'hamitzvahs, asher heim lo'ad kayamim. Ben Adam, mankind, what are you worried about your days? Lama tidag al adamim. You're worried about your money. Why are you worried about your money? That's not going to help you at the end. There's so many wealthy people that are so depressed, they're so down, because they feel they really haven't accomplished. You're not worried about your days. Once, April 10th goes by, finished. It's not coming back. And January 2nd, 2023 will never come back, even if it's your birthday. It's not coming back. So you got to worry about your days, not about your money. Ki adamim einam oizrim, v'hayamim einam chayzrim. Redoif acha ha'torah v'mitzvahs, run after Torah mitzvahs, asher heim la'ad kayamim. That's everlasting. And as we go through Paysach till Shavuos, we have to realize we're counting upward, because we have to become better with Leiv Toiv, with Arichas Yomim, with Torah and Chesed. So I just want to end with this fabulous story. A number of years ago in Lakewood, they decided that they're going to give off in the elementary schools, not the Beis Medrash, the elementary schools, for 3 days before the Yontif for Paysach, because it's a very, very busy time. And like this, the young Rebbes will be able to help the wives in the kitchen or in the house or whatever. So Vahi Hayoim is 3 days before Yontif, and this 5th grade Rebbe comes in to the kitchen and he says to his wife, "Can I help you? Is there anything I can do?" She says, "You really want to help?" He says, "Yeah, I'll do whatever you tell me." So she says, "Look, Baruch Hashem, we have 6 kids. If you could take these 6 kids for a 4-hour outing, take them out of the house, that would be great. I could bake, cook, and clean." And he's thinking, what am I supposed to do with these kids for 4 hours in Lakewood? But then he remembers Newark Airport is an hour away from Lakewood. So that's 1 hour there, 1 hour back. That's already 2 hours. Now he has to figure out what's he going to do in Newark Airport. And then he remembers that in Newark Airport there's an air train. An air train means it goes from terminal to terminal. The airports are so monstrous today that you can't even walk from one terminal to the other. So you land in JetBlue and you want to go to United or American Airlines, you get on this train and it takes you from place to place. Now, I was on this air train in Atlanta recently, but that's underground. In Newark Airport, it's overground. And it goes near the runway, so the kids were able to see the planes taking off and landing. And then it goes over the Jersey Turnpike, so they see all the cars and trucks or whatever. It was so exciting. They were on the train for 2 hours. After 2 hours, a pilot gets on the plane, gets on this air train. Pilot, very neat-looking guy with a tie and a jacket and a cap. And these pilots are wonderful, wonderful people. And he sees a father with 6 kids. He goes over to the kids, he says, "Hey, where are you guys flying today?" They didn't know what to say. So they look at the father, and he says, "Actually, we're flying nowhere." He says, "Excuse me, nowhere?" He says, "You see, we're religious Jews, and we have a religious holiday coming up, and it's a very busy time, so my wife asked me if I could take the kids out of the house. So for the last 2 hours, we've been on this train. We're just having a great time together." So the pilot gets very serious, and he says, "Young man, I want to tell you something." He said, "I've been a pilot for 25 years. there's not a major airport in the world that I haven't landed in. He said, 2 years ago, I got a text from my son. And he writes me, Dad, you're always so busy. You never came to any of my birthday parties. You didn't even come to my graduation. And last week, my son, your first grandson, had a birthday party, and you didn't even have the decency to come. Do me a favor. Take my number out of your contacts. And he said, 2 weeks later, I got the same text from my daughter. He said, young man, I have flown everywhere, but obviously gone nowhere. You told me you're flying nowhere, but with these kids, you're going everywhere. And that's what life is all about. Now, I told this story out of town, and a lady was sitting, I mean, it's a big crowd, the lady was sitting on the third row. When I said that punchline, that obviously you said you're flying nowhere, but with these kids, you're going everywhere. She burst into tears and started crying. It was so embarrassing. Because obviously, she was that type of person that was involved in everything but without the children. And as we go towards the Yontif of Shavuos, and we want to become those people that have Arichas Yomim, and we want to reach that level of Torah and Chesed, we got to make sure that the kids are on board. And the only way the kids are on board is if they know you love them, and they know that you spend time with them, and they know that you validate them. Hashem should bench everyone in this wonderful community and everyone listening on this video presentation or on Zoom, wherever it is. We should be zeicha to have the right seichel, to make sure that we make those decisions with Rabbanim that can guide us, and Talmidei Chachamim that can tell us what the Gedolim of previous generations did. I can only tell you that Nebuch, right in the beginning of COVID, one of the great people of Agudas Yisrael that passed away was the Novominsker Rebbe. For years, he was the leader of Agudas Yisrael. He was an eloquent speaker, both in Yiddish and in English, and it was incredible to listen to him at the conventions. And this past Paysach issue of Mishpacha magazine, and I'm only mentioning them to give them credit, they did an interview with the Novominsker Rebbe's two sons, and they told an amazing story that when the Novominsker Rebbe was a young man, teenager, maybe in the early 20s, before he was married, he learned in Chaim Berlin by Rav Hutner. And in that Beis Medrash in Chaim Berlin, there was a boy from Canada. And one day, this boy from Canada, his uncle came to visit the Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Hutner. And he gave him an envelope, and it had a tremendous amount of money. Obviously, this uncle felt that Rav Hutner was spending extra time with this kid who was out of town from Canada. Rav Hutner opened up the envelope. He couldn't believe it. It was a tremendous amount of money, way beyond what he thought any parent or uncle would give. And he said to the man, "What's heißt like? What are you doing? It's like so much money." So the man answered him this word. I want to say it in Yiddish, and I'll translate. The man said, "Was heißt? A Yid darf sich überstrengen." That means a Yid has to go beyond the call of duty. He has to exert himself. Rav Hutner was so taken by that comment that he started using it in the shmuzin that he gave in Chaim Berlin. And the Novominsker, who was a boy at that time, picked up that expression, and many, many times throughout his life, especially near the end of his life, when it was so hard for him to get around, he would always tell his children and his wife, "A Yid darf sich überstrengen." You have to go beyond the call of duty. It's not easy, but that's what we got to do. Because we're a greater people, and we could exert ourselves in a way that will make Hashem proud. And something else, our families will be proud of us, and we ourselves will be proud. Hashem should bench all of us. We should have Arichas Yomim and Arichas Shanim also as well. And we should be able to fulfill our great potential. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Government, for having us. And thank you all for coming and listening. Thank you. Good night.